All of you are welcome to the Guesstimate Workshop. And today we'll be discussing about the guesstimates, how you can nail the guesstimates with a logical and structured approach. So I would like my team members to introduce themselves. Brahmjot and Nishya, you can introduce yourself.
Hi everyone, this is Brahmjot from 4th year metallurgy and looking forward to this session. Thank you.
A very good evening to all of you guys. My name is Kunal. I'm production fourth year, right? All the very best for this workshop.
Hi guys, I'm Nishtay. I'm in 4th year metallurgy branch, and I think this workshop is very important for all you guys because in 2nd year I started my own business, and these type of things were really helpful for me. And all the best for the workshop. Yes, over to you, Bharat.
Yeah. So good evening, everyone. I'm Bharat, and I'm 4th year metallurgy. Well, I've been a part of the EIC for the past 3 years, and we'll be moving forward to the Guesstimate Workshop. So now when we talk about, just a second. Okay. So now, first of all, talking about what is a guesstimate. So now, like I remember one day, I was just sitting with my friends after playing pool, and we were discussing about this chai sota bar, which was opening one place, and this MBA chai wala, which was opening at another place. So we're just discussing that इन्होंने यहाँ पे ठीक खोला है, गलत खोला है, इनका revenue कितना होता होगा. So when we are discussing such kind of things, maybe we are not intentionally doing a guesstimate, but somewhere unintentionally we are into guesstimates. We are estimating that यहाँ पे इतने लोग आते होंगे, सुबह के टाइम में भी कम आते होंगे, रात के टाइम ज़्यादा आते होंगे. So that is something which is intrinsically related to a guesstimate. So a guesstimate is basically a guesswork which is done by you without the correct or complete detail. You're just making assumptions. That is what is a guesstimate. So guesstimate happens to be a portmanteau, which happened to bound in, I think, 1930s or 40s, when the American statisticians were trying to set up some data and present it. So they used this approach of guesstimates. So now, if we talk about some of the examples of guesstimates, then it can be, if you have a Boeing 747, how many balls can you fit into it? If you have to count the number of trees which are there in Chandigarh parks, or it might be the number of red lights in Chandigarh city itself. So if you want to answer such questions, obviously we require some amount of mental math, some quantitative aptitude, some logical thinking skills, and obviously some problem solving skills. And you need some background knowledge. Let us say I want to calculate the number of tennis balls which can fit in a Boeing 747. So you need to know, okay, what can be the dimension of a tennis ball? This is something you need to think, okay, it might be 3 centimeters in diameter. I'm just taking a random assumption. So like this, some background knowledge you need to have, which is very, very general with us from day-to-day learnings. And obviously some logical thinking you need to employ. Like nobody knows what is the length of an airplane, but obviously you can assume, let us say there are 400 seats in an airplane, and there will be some amount of leg space. Now using that, and you can assume, let us say you can have the height as 7 feet. I'm talking about the inner space where we can fit the balls. So like this, you need some logical thinking to come to a solution for the guesstimate. So now talking about market sizing. Anyone has any idea about market sizing? You can unmute yourself and answer.
Sir, it could be like how many products are sold for a particular quantity. Like, suppose it could be asked how many pens will be sold in pack market.
Yeah, great. So a market sizing is a type of guesstimate only. But when we are talking about the size of the market in a guesstimate, it gets referred to as market sizing itself. So when a guesstimate asks for the size of a market, it is called as market sizing. So these require you to estimate the market size, like he said that एक market के अंदर कितने पेन बिकते होंगे एक दिन में. So this is, we are just gauging what is the potential of a particular market. So that becomes a market sizing problem. Now, some of the more examples can be, how much revenue does a McDonald's outlet make each month? How many TVs are sold annually? Now, what is the car market size in India? And India में कितने mobile बिकते हैं annually? So these are some of the questions which are of market sizing. Okay. So now again, you need some math, some logic, some problem solving skills. Along with that, an additional factor which comes into play in market sizing happens to be some sense of business knowledge. Like if you're coming into, let us say, baby food market. If you're coming into United States, there the people are somewhat open-minded. They will readily accept your food for their young ones. But if you come to India, people are not that much, confident of the brands. They are somewhat skeptical about it. They would rely on their traditional food instead of the branded and packed food for babies. So that kind of thing is to be seen. Okay. I'm unable to see the messages. If anyone has a message to me, you can just tell over me because I'm presenting.
सर ये पूछ रहा था कि जैसे कितने प्राइस पे कितनी क्वांटिटी बेचनी है, वो भी मार्केट साइजिंग में आएगा या किसी और टॉपिक के अंदर आएगा?
कितने प्राइस पे बेचनी है, सो यू आर आस्किंग फॉर सम थिंग दैट कितना बेचना है, कितने साइज पे बेचना है, दैट कम्स अंडर केस स्टडी.
ओके,
या, so that we'll be looking at in the subsequent workshops. Okay. Now the question is, we have got to understand what is a guesstimate. We have got to understand that market sizing is somewhat a modified form of a guesstimate itself. How do you get to solve it? That is the basic question. So if we want to solve a guesstimate, first of all, there happens to be ambiguity in a guesstimate always. Like if we come to the previous slides, here it is written, you can see number of mobiles sold annually. यहाँ पे mobiles के बारे में कुछ नहीं बता रखा. स्मार्टफोन है, कौन सा फोन है, we don't know. Moreover, कौन सा देश है इंडिया के अंदर, globally where. Same way, car market size in India. Which kind of cars are you talking about? There are a variety of cars. Furthermore, क्या हम सिर्फ और सिर्फ domestic consumption की बात करें या फिर जो army भी employ करती है cars को, and many other domains are also employing cars. So do we need to consider that? Number of TVs sold annually. In which country it is not mentioned. So we can see that there is a lot of ambiguity and that needs to be resolved. So first of all, what we need to do is we need to ask the interviewer a clarifying question. Like I asked here, I just told you, you can ask the interviewer, in which country are we talking about? What do you mean by a mobile phone? Is it a smartphone, or we are considering the keypad phones also? So all these things need to be clarified. Once you're done with the clarification, then you can move to breaking down the problem. Like if you're trying to calculate, let us say, the number of mobile phones which are sold in India, and let us say I clarify it out to you that we are talking about the smartphones. Now you can break down the population of India. It is 130 crores. Then you can say that, okay, this many are poor, this many are middle class, this many are rich and upper middle class. And you can somewhat eliminate the poor class because they won't be able to afford a smartphone. That is something very logical to us. You can further take into the middle class into account and the upper middle class into account, or the rich class, and you can further proceed with the calculations. So once you have broken down the problem, further you proceed to solving each piece individually. So like एक middle class के पास कितने phone होते हैं? One person I think has one phone or maximum of two phones in a middle class, if you're talking about scenario. At the same time, if you're talking about a rich class person, he might be having 3 phones or 4 phones or 5 phones. So like this, you can solve each piece. And once you have solved all of them, then you can put them together and consolidate them into the final result. So this is how we are going to solve a guesstimate. So first of all, you clarify, then you structure, then you analyze, and then you conclude. Now, first of all, clarify the problem. So this is something I talked about just right now, uh, that there was some ambiguity in these questions, which is the country and what is the kind of mobile phone. So we have to first of all clarify the problem. So what is the benefit of clarification? First of all, we can see that it is removing the ambiguity for us. Second thing, it also ensures that you and the interviewer are on the same page. Means I'm solving a guesstimate with you. Now I'm not coming so much prepared. जो भी आपसे guesstimate पूछता है, he doesn't have some broad idea. It is you who has to drive a guesstimate. So if you clarify and if you talk with the interviewer, then both of you are on the same page. You are thinking the same way. Maybe when I talk about a phone, I may be thinking that phone के अंदर मैं keypad और touch screen दोनों दे रहा हूँ. But you might be thinking that I'm talking only about a smartphone. So once you clarify, then there is less scope for disagreements on the later stages. Further, it is also showing an ideal approach and an organized approach to problem solving. And furthermore, when I give you a guesstimate, I don't give you so much time. I just tell you a guesstimate. You can ask me for 1 minute and then you have to solve it on spot. So if you have to solve it on spot, that means time is very, very crucial. So for that, if you're clarifying the problem, in the back of the mind, you can frame out some rough structure also. And that is helping you buy some time, which is very, very important in case of a guesstimate. So this is a step which you should never skip, simply because the guesstimates are always bound to be ambiguous by nature. And that is why guesstimates are there, because they want to see that in a business scenario. Suppose you want to start your business. Now, there is no particular formula which you apply and you will have a successful startup going into a unicorn. There is always ambiguity. So how clearly, how incisive is your intellect? How clearly you can see things? That is something which is being tested through guesstimates. So if you're going for clarification, the more clarity you have, the better you can approach something and the better you can deal with it. So this is the objective of guesstimates in one way also. Now we are coming to the step 2, which is to break down the problems. Now, once you have asked for the timeout, okay, I want to take 1 minute or 2 minutes, you can take it. In the meantime, what you do in those 2 minutes, 1 to 2 minutes, is you just write down the rough approach to the problem. You never solve the figures. If you go on solving the figures, then you will waste that time. The solving of the figures has to be done along with the interview. And whatever pieces you are breaking down into, those pieces have to be relatively easier as compared to the bigger one. If you're not able to simplify it, it means somewhere you are exacerbating the problem itself, and it will become difficult for you to handle it. Just a second. Okay. So now, let us say I was talking about the number of mobile phones in India. So can anyone tell, like I discussed something like we can take population into account. We can take maybe the financial condition into account. Anything else which anyone wants to add on to solve that problem? Any further account or block? Anyone? You can just unmute yourself and put on.
So we can consider the age factor.
Yeah, you can consider the age factor. Nice. So maybe the younger generation, the young people are more attracted towards the mobile phones. They have a greater affinity for it, but the older generations might be less, attracted by it. So that is one of the other factors which can also be considered. Now, let us have a look at it. So if you're having India's smartphone market size, then it might be considered in terms of India's population. It can be considered in terms of the percentage of population who are owners of mobile phones. Now, not everyone is going to have a mobile phone. Even if I'm rich, I have a choice that I don't have a mobile phone. Yes. So if you're going for 100%, everyone who is rich has a mobile phone, then that might be somewhat wrong. Furthermore, the percentage of owners who are smartphone users, that is something which can be taken into account. We are basically coming to the point, screwing it down from the total market of the phones. We are coming to the smartphones. This is another approach to that. And obviously, if you want to find the number of phones which are sold in India annually, then if you find the number of smartphones in India, that won't give you the number of phones which are sold annually. There is a difference. हो सकता है भी इंडिया के अंदर लेटर से 1 करोड़ मोबाइल फोन है, बट वो 1 करोड़ मोबाइल फोन इसी साल बिके हैं, इसकी जरूरत नहीं है, ये जरूरी नहीं है. सो लेटर से एक फोन 3 साल में खराब होता है, तो 1 साल में कितने फोन बिकेंगे? 1 crore divided by 3. So it will be approximately 33 lakh phones which are sold annually. So this is another factor, which is the lifespan of a particular product. Here we are talking about a smartphone. If you're talking about a washing machine, then uska lifespan hota hai around, I think, 7 to 10 years. If you have a car, it has a lifespan of 7-8 years. So like that, you need to consider the lifespan of that particular product also. And this particular approach which we are taking to break down the problem, this is known as an issue tree. And it has to be MECE. Anyone having any idea? MECE क्या होता है? Anyone? You can unmute yourself and speak. Other idea है तो. So MECE stands for mutually exclusive and collectively exhaustive. Some basic things which I have always known from maths, that if there are two sets, now they have to be exclusive by nature. That is, they don't overlap. At the same time, when you're combining all of them, they should be collectively exhaustive by nature. So what do we mean to say is that when you're breaking down a problem into the smaller parts or fragments, you need to make sure that those fragments are not overlapping with each other. At the same time, when you're putting all of them together, they are completing whole of the market itself. So this is MECE, which is an important thing to be considered when you're solving guesstimates. Agar overlap hoga, in that case, you will be getting higher number of products or higher figures than expected. If they are not exhaustive by nature, in that sense, the figures which you acquire or which you drill down to will be lower than the actual number. So this is something where MECE comes into play. So when you're solving a problem, you just need to see that sare ke sare arenas consider ho rahe hain. At the same time, they're not overlapping at all. Okay. Now there's an activity for you. I guess we have some idea, some background knowledge and idea of what a guesstimate is, how to solve it. Yes. So the first thing be, if you have to calculate the number of cars in India, can anyone tell isko hum kaise approach kar sakte hain? You can just unmute yourself.
So first, calculating number of manufacturers of cars for various cars.
Okay. Then
And then dividing according to budget of the cars, according to their range.
okay.
Annual income of families can be considered.
Annual income of
Families can be considered.
For India,
तो मिडिल क्लास है उनके पास एक होती है मोस्टली, और वो 15 सालों में चेंज करते हैं. और जो हाई क्लास होती है उनके पास 2 या 2 से ज्यादा होती हैं, 4.
okay.
Total number of production.
Total production. Okay. What else?
लाइक सोल्ड बताना है या फिर कितनी यूज हो रही है, और लाइक ऑन रोड.
Number of cars which are sold in India annually. So
Number of car loans.
Number of car loans.
loans.
Okay. Fine.
लाइसेंसेस से अप्रोच कर सकते हैं सर?
सर रजिस्ट्री से निकलवा
licenses.
सकते हैं जिसको लाइसेंस
अप्लाइड जो
Okay.
भी होते हैं फॉर 4 व्हीलर्स.
Okay, so one of the things we need to understand is guesstimates के अंदर आप RTO को approach नहीं कर सकते. You have to solve it on the spot. So I don't think anyone has any data that India में कितने licenses issue हो रहे हैं. Yes. So one of the other answers I got is we can go for the number of cars which are manufactured in India. So now if you talk about the approaches which are there are basically two kinds of approaches. One is the demand side approach, another is the supply side approach. When we're going for the supply side approach, it is not wrong, but it becomes difficult to gauge from that side. Let us say मैं number of cars निकालना चाहता हूँ जो इंडिया में एक साल में बिकती हैं. Now you are saying that you can ask for the number of cars which are manufactured. I'm saying fine, go ahead with it. How do you find the number of cars which are manufactured in India? That is something which is an arduous task. So for that reason, many a times supply side approach happens to be a bit difficult to work out. So the demand side approach is a better way out in many cases. I'm not saying in all the cases it will work, but in many of the guesstimates, you'll find that the demand side approach will make your life easier with the guesstimates, right? Okay, when we are talking about cars, one of you told me about population. Someone talked about the financial distribution, middle class ke paas itni hongi and utni hongi. One of the answers which I got was about car loans. Someone also talked about license. Okay. Anything else?
कंपनी की जितनी भी सेलिंग जो भी डिटेल्स होती है उनके पास होती है तो वहां से भी अप्रोच कर सकते हैं.
That is what I'm saying. If I ask you right now, number of cars which are sold in India, how will you get the details from the company right now? That is a problem with it. Okay. One of the most important factors which we need to consider is the average life of a car also. So how we can approach it basically is, we can first of all find the population of India, which we basically know, 130 crores. Then we can basically divide it into segments. Middle class itni hai, rich class itni hai, rural class, the poverty class, jo lower class hai wo itni hai. Further, you can say that you can rule out the poverty people, the poor people, and you can jump into the middle class. Now you can say middle class might be having 50% might be having one car, 50% might be having two cars. So on an average, एक middle class family के पास 1.5 cars होंगी. Yes. For a rich class or an upper middle class, you can say they might be having 3 to 4 cars. So like this, you can approach it. Then you can find out a number, and whatever number you find out, you can say that, let us say the life of a car is 8 years. So you can divide that number by 8.
Divide by 8.
Yeah. So you'll get the number of cars which are sold. The same way TVs ke saath. So for TVs, you can find the number of households which are there in India. And same way you can approach like cars. Very much similar to it. Correct. Now let us come to another thing, which is the number of cigarettes.
सर ये accurate तो नहीं होगा, बहुत ज़्यादा ही शायद differences हो सकते हैं.
Yeah, there are possibilities of the differences, but in guesstimates, they are not looking for a correct answer. Most probably, जो आपसे पूछ रहा है, उसको भी correct answer नहीं पता होगा. What we are looking for is your ability to drive your case through an uncharted path. When you're not familiar with it, in between the ambiguity, can you find out a number which seems to be reasonable? Like if I say India ki population 130 crore hai, and if you tell me that 50 crore cars are sold in India in a year, then that seems to be somewhat unfair. When you're saying that, you are saying that every 3 years it is getting changed and everyone is having a car. That is somewhat unreasonable in India. So whatever figures you are coming down to, they must be in coherence and compliance with a sanity check. Yes?
Sir, can we use facts in guesstimates?
You can use facts, but I would say that जो आपसे पूछ रहा है, उसको भी कुछ हद तक उसका आइडिया हो. Now if you give some reference of some science journal जो कि सिर्फ आपने पढ़ी है, किसी और ने नहीं पढ़ी, then maybe it won't be feasible for me to agree with you. Yes?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, coming to the second thing, which is the number of cigars or the number of mobile phones in India. तो हमने mobile phone वाली approach discuss करी, that कैसे हम break down कर सकते हैं. When you are talking about cigarettes, maybe you can bring age factor into account. Anyone would like to try a bit? Cigarettes consumed कैसे solve करेंगे? It is injurious to health. Yeah? Yeah.
Sir, okay.
बोलो. You can try. Anyone?
सर हम पहले मतलब एज कंसीडर करेंगे.
Okay.
कि मतलब बिलो 18 मतलब 0 कर दो, बिलो 16 से नीचे कर दो. मतलब पहले पॉपुलेशन अपने को पता है 130 करोड़ है. तो जैसा कि हमें पता है कि 20% बच्चे होते हैं जो वो हैं 10 से नीचे हैं.
Okay.
और 10% और लगा दो, मतलब जो 10 ईयर से और 16 ईयर से बीच में है.
तो you don't go into numbers, you just give me a rough approach. हम ऐसे ऐसे करेंगे. We are not looking into numbers.
सर 30% तो हो गए पॉपुलेशन के जो 16 ईयर से नीचे हैं, तो वो स्मोकिंग करते नहीं होंगे.
Okay.
और देन 70% लेफ्ट, तो उनमें से 60 या 70% होंगे जो करते हैं, लेकिन 30% होंगे जो नहीं करते हैं. मतलब सॉरी 50% तो लेडीज होगी जो मेजरली 90 से 95% नहीं करती हैं. तो हमारे पास बचे हैं 30%, 70 मतलब
I'm getting a point. We won't go into the calculation, but you're talking about one of the factors you're taking is age group. Another factor you're taking is the gender, if I can get you right.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so that is a good approach. So basically what you can take is, I think in India, I don't know the correct laws, but I think below 18, you cannot legally smoke. Yeah. But if we say that 18 years in niche koi bhi smoke nahi karta hai, then that would be unfair. So we can say that a percentage of them which are below 18 are smoking, a percentage of them which are above 18 which are smoking will be comparatively higher. Yes, so we can approach from that side. You can go into the rural and urban segmentations also. Urban में, rural में किसमें ज़्यादा होगा, you can think on those lines. Furthermore, you can think on the gender lines also. Yes, so like this you can approach this thing. Now another thing is number of airplanes which are landing on an airport. कैसे निकाल सकते हैं?
गिवन एयरपोर्ट के नंबर ऑफ गेट्स को देख सकते हैं और पीक आवर्स के अकॉर्डिंगली डिवाइड कर सकते हैं. लाइक पीक जब जैसे मुंबई एयरपोर्ट में देयर विल बी मोर गेट, मोर ट्रैफिक कंपेयर्ड टू वन इन चंडीगढ़. एंड उसके अलावा लाइक एक एवरेज टाइम अज्यूम कर सकते हैं कि कितना टाइम लगता है बोर्डिंग एंड प्लेन को फ्लाई होने.
सर हम ये भी कह सकते हैं कि एक पर डे में कितनी मतलब सीट रिजर्व होती हैं, मतलब कितनी सुबह से शाम तक कितनी आती जाती हैं, उसको डिवाइड बाय 2 कर देंगे, क्योंकि वो आएंगी उस टाइम, मतलब जाते हुए की आधी 50% और आएंगी वो 50%. तो और जितनी सीटें हैं सब में मेजरली कॉमन होती हैं सीटें, नंबर ऑफ सीट्स, तो वो पॉपुलेशन जितनी आ रही है वो डिवाइड बाय हो जाएगा 2, मतलब जितनी पॉपुलेशन है. तो
But in this case, Pankaj, how would you get to the figure that this much is the total number of bookings per day or something like that? Well, how do you come to this figure? The logic behind this you have to tell in the interview.
ये भी है, ऑफिशियल नहीं ले सकते ना.
So, yeah, anyone else?
Yeah, so we can also look into the fact that whether the airport is international or only domestic.
Yeah, that will be obviously one of the factors. अगर international है तो maybe the frequency and the number of flights.
Yeah, that one.
So like that, we are getting many approaches. So we can see that airplanes can you can basically go by the number of terminals which are there, and you can take the frequency of flights, national or domestic. You can take whatever you take. You have to give a logical basis to it. You don't go by exact figures. मैंने तो ये बढ़ा था तो ये ही होता है. If you go by that way, then somewhere it might be puny on your side. Okay. Now talking about these three types, हमने तीन types लिखे या देखे. First is number of cars or TVs, another is number of mobiles, and third is number of airplanes landing. Now these three इनको एक triangular form में लिखे. There is a reason behind that. Simply because these are not of the same types. The approach to three of them are a bit different. इसे वो idea है कैसे different है?
सर सर इसमें हमें एग्जैक्ट नंबर बताना होता है कि परसेंटेजेस में बात करनी होती है आंसर करने के लिए?
That depends on the question. Generally, you have to go to a figure.
सर ऐसे तो हमें किसी मतलब कोई भी चीज का नहीं पता होता ना नंबर, मतलब एयरप्लेन्स लैंडिंग एयरपोर्ट में कितनी है कुछ भी नहीं पता.
So that is what I'm saying. The focus is not on your answer. The focus is on your approach. There is no perfect answer to a guesstimate.
So in approach we have to tell in percentage wise, means suppose X is the number of flights standing there, then 30% will come there, like that. In percentage wise we have to tell, or
you can go in terms of percentages. That will be much better when you're going for guesstimate.
Okay.
Now if you look at these three things, now if you talk about cars or TVs, तो हम गाड़ियां कैसे गिनते हैं? We एक घर के अंदर कितनी गाड़ी होंगी? एक या दो होती होंगी फॉर अ मिडिल क्लास. एक रिच बंदे के घर पे 3 या 4 गाड़ियां होती होंगी. When you are talking about cars या TVs, तो हम टीवी या कार घर के हिसाब से गिनते हैं. एक घर के अंदर मिडिल क्लास में 1-2 टीवी होते होंगे, रिच के अंदर 4-5 टीवी होते होंगे. Yes. So when we are going for cars or TVs, we are going somewhat by households, number of households which are there. When you are going for number of cigarettes consumed, no, you don't think that एक घर के अंदर इतने लोग सिगरेट पीते होंगे. You are going by individual in this case. When you are talking about number of mobile phones which are sold, you don't say एक घर के अंदर 4 फोन होते होंगे. You are going by number of people which are there. एक व्यक्ति के पास which is middle class might be having 1 to 2 phones. You are not saying that एक घर के अंदर इतने फोन होते होंगे. When you are talking about the third thing, which is the number of airplanes which are landing, that happens to be completely different. You have to think on different lines altogether. So this is basically working on the household approach. The number of cars, the number of TVs, the number of washing machines, जो भी आप घर से relate करके चल रहे हो, you have to go for the number of households. So you can basically assume that, let us say the number of people in a family in India on an average are 4. Then number of households will be 130 crore divided by 4. You can get the number of households and you can work out accordingly. If you're talking about the population approach, as we talked about it earlier, and structural approach में you have to see number of terminals कितने हैं, flights की frequency क्या होती होगी, peak time के ऊपर कितनी frequency होगी, non peak time के ऊपर क्या होगी, you can approach from those angles. Okay. Now, this was step 2, that we are breaking down the problem, a bit pretty long, but we have seen it. Now coming to the step 3, which is to solve each of the pieces. Now it is basically application of maths. Yes. Now, as I said earlier, जब आप starting में 1-2 minute मांगते हो, don't use that time to solve the quantifiable part. Just get the basic approach, solve the part when you are discussing it with the interviewer. Yeah. Now there are some statistics which you should know. Like it can be population of India. It is 130 crore. You can assume it to be 120 crore also. Just ask the interviewer for the permission. Shall I assume it to be 120 crore? Because it is a multiple of 4. It can help you many a times, making your calculations easier. If you talk about the financial split, you can say that, okay, middle class is 50%, the poor people are 30%, and the upper middle class and rich class happens to be around 20%. You can go for the age demographics also, like I think the youth which are below 40 years of age are 70% in India. 0 to 20 happens to be 30% of the population. 25 to 40 happens to be 40% of the population. Like that, you can go further. You can remember some of these data or statistics, which will become very handy when you're solving these guesstimates. Further, we can go for the rural-urban. Rural के अंदर 60% of population रहती है, and urban के अंदर 40%. Now, once we have broken down and solved each of the parts, you can go for the consolidation of the pieces. So you have to go for the calculations and you have to do them gradually. If you do it too slow, obviously it will become boring for me, that is the interviewer. And don't do it wrong, obviously. Now coming to the tips and tricks. So the first thing is to ask close-ended clarification questions. Now, when we are saying close-ended clarification questions, what it means is that uska answer yes या no में आ सके. Now, let us say I have to find the number of phones which are sold in India. Now, you don't say what is the time period. If you ask me what is the time period, then I have a choice. I can say find the number of mobile phones which are sold annually after 5 years. Time period मैंने 5 साल के बाद का दे दिया. In that case, you will have to take into account the market growth rate also, and it will make your thing a bit difficult. So you can basically say, can I assume that it is for the current year? In that case, you have the control over the guesstimate question. Yeah. So this is what we are talking about. Never ask open-ended questions. Otherwise, the control goes to the interviewer. Yeah. Okay. Now talking about the second thing, which is don't panic, just think out aloud. So whenever you're going given a guesstimate question, you can ask, okay, can I take 1-2 minutes? And you can just structure your thoughts and you can gain your confidence. And it is important that you think it out loud, as most of you are saying that koi correct answer to ho nahi sakta. Then how do we evaluate it? How do we get evaluated? The basic thing is if you're thinking out loud, okay, this is where I'm going, this is what I'm thinking, then it gives the interviewer an insight into your thought process. Even if you get the answer wrong, there are possibilities that the interviewer gets your logic and you might succeed. Now coming to the tip 3, which is rounding up the numbers. 789 hai to 800 kar lo. You can just ask the interviewer for the permission and go with it to basically simplify the calculations. Now there is a pro tip. बहुत ही basic सी चीज़ है वैसे, that you are using 10% as a reference for percentages. That is, let us say I want to calculate 30% of India's population. Now 130 crore India की population है, उसका 30% निकालना है. If you go by 30% like that, it might take some time. This is simple, it will be 0.3 into 130. You can solve it easily. But another approach can be, you can always find 10% of it. 130 crore का 10% कितना है? 13. तो 30% कितना होगा उसका 3 times 39 crore. So like this, if you are taking 10%, you can easily find 5% by halving it, 20% by doubling it. Any number you can find if you just take the 10% as reference. Tip 4 is to perform regular sanity checks. That is, logical लग रहा है, सही लग रहा है. ऐसा नहीं that बहुत हवा में हम चीजें मार रहे हैं. So that is a sanity check. Yeah. So you have to do the sanity checks and you can do them out loud so that the interviewer can see that how careful you happen to be. Sorry. Last, I think the last tip, that is to solve the problem with the explicit visual aids. So you can make these trees which are there. So it will help you to basically structure your thoughts well. Yeah. Okay. So now we will be having a live demonstration here of the guesstimates, and Brahmjot Singh and Kunal Banga will be demonstrating it to you live. Over to you, both of you.
Hey guys. So, firstly, Kunal, are you here?
Yes, Brahmjot.
Yeah. So here I am acting as an interviewer and Kunal is an interviewee here, and we are going to solve a guesstimate. So yeah, Kunal, we need to estimate the number of TVs sold in India annually.
Okay, sure. So for that, sir, I'm assuming the India's population to be 120 crores. Is that fine?
Yeah, that's fine with me.
Okay, so next I would like to come, I'm going to do this on the demand side. So basically, in each family, there are 4 members. I'm averaging out because in some families there would be 3 members, 5 members, 6. So average I'm taking to be 4 members in one family.
That's a fair assumption.
Okay, so next dividing 120 CR by 4, this comes out
Mhm.
to be 30 crore families that are in India.
Okay.
Fair enough?
So we are only considering the nuclear families here, right?
All right.
Yeah, that's great.
Okay. Next, I would like to do the split on the basis of the income of Indian families, basically.
Mm-hmm.
So for
Yeah.
that, I have divided into 25, 50, and 25. So in that, 25 would be lower income class, which consists of lower income as well as below poverty line.
Yeah, great.
50% would be middle class income, and
Mm-hmm.
25% would be upper class income. Is that fine?
Okay. Yeah, fine with me.
Okay, so making some calculations, this gives me figure of 25% of 30 crore, that is to be 7.5 crores
Yeah.
in lower class income and as well as in upper class income, and rest
Mm-hmm.
15 crore would be in middle class, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So next is these are the number of people eligible to buy, but since in the lower class income, I'm assuming only 25% of the people will going to buy a TV because it is not a very affordable thing. So are the people that comes in below poverty line and all.
Yeah, that's a fair assumption.
Okay, so just for the assumption and to make some calculation easier, I'm assuming 25% is going to of 7.5 crore is going to be 2 crore.
Yeah.
Next, in the middle class families, which are 15 crore families in India, I am assuming one TV would be there, and in some 33%, some people would not buy. In many families, there would be 2 TVs or 3 TVs, maybe possible. So I'm
Mm-hmm.
assuming to be one TV per family in middle class income.
Okay.
So this gives me 15 crore TVs in middle class income. And assuming the same thing in upper class income, I'm assuming to be 1.5 TV in each family because in that thing, in one family, there would be 4, 5, 6 TVs depending on their income class. So I'm assuming 1.5 TV. So this gives me 11 crores.
Yeah, that's great. So
Uh,
Kunal, it
yes.
will be great if you can please explain why you considered 1.5 only. If you can just give me the percentages.
Yes, sure. In this case, I am assuming that approximately 20% people are going to have one TV, 20% would be like 2 TVs, and in some there would be very little amount of people who are going to buy 3 or 4 TVs. So that's
Okay,
why I've
so you have
taken.
taken the averages of these percentages, and
uh,
we have
right,
reached to the conclusion that there will be 1.5 TVs for
1.5
rich
TV per
households.
family, right. So
Yeah,
totally
that's
it
great.
gives me 11 crores.
Yeah, that's great. I
So
hope everyone get it. If anyone has a doubt, yeah,
I'm audible.
yes,
yeah,
Farid.
Bharat, you are audible.
Yeah. So I think this is the number of TVs which we have got, which are there. Now, further, we can take the average life of a TV, which can be around 5 years maybe, and we can divide the total number by 5, and we will be getting the number of TVs which are sold annually. So
Yeah,
this is the basic approach where we first of all got the number of households, then we basically divided by the financial thing. Further, we, as both of them very well explained, we can solve it.
yeah.
So I think we are done.
Bharat,
Yeah.
someone is asking about that. Anish, can you please unmute yourself and tell us your problem
Uh, yes, sir. Actually, I didn't understood what you said. Can you just explain this one
uh,
again?
about what like that 1.5?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah. So basically, in this case, what Kunal did is that Kunal has considered in these 7.5 crore households in these rich families, 20% families have one TV, 30% have 3 TVs, and 40 the rest 50% have 2 TVs. And then we have average it out, so we have 1.5. Actually, I didn't have any figures about this, so I'm just letting you know that we have done this like
I think
percentages
in
and
simple terms, what we can do is we can just say that 33% of the population will be having one TV, 33% would be having 1.5 TV, and 33% would be having two TVs. So that's why I have taken the average to be 1.5.
yeah, that's the
Maybe you
logic
can,
behind this.
if you can assume it to be two TVs or 2.5, you just have to give the logic behind this. And at last, if you like, or you can ask clarifying question to the interviewer also, that do I need to calculate just in residential sector only, or should I consider the commercial sector? Because in this, I have only calculated the number of TVs sold in residential families only. There would be some percentage of TV that are going to sold in commercial spaces like offices, hospitals, and all other places.
Yeah, that should be a clarification question here. It will be great if we can go further with this. So yeah, can we move to next guesstimate, Bharat?
Can you just give me a second?
Yeah, just.
Excuse me, sir.
Yeah.
Yes, Gaurav.
सर फॉर दिस टाइप ऑफ क्वेश्चंस हमें एक बेसिक आइडिया होना चाहिए ना हर चीजों का, मतलब थोड़ा जीके रिलेटेड कि ये क्या फैक्ट्स और फिगर्स है या फिर ये रैंडम वैल्यू से ही हमको सॉल्व करना है.
See, Gaurav, in every figure that you are considering, you have to give the logic behind this, that how you come to that figure, and is that figure realistic or not. Well, see, in my example, what I did, that I have considered one TV in middle income class and 1.5 TV in upper income class. So if you do the inverse in interview, like you are going to say that in middle income class, average family is going to have 1.5 or 2 TV, and in upper income class, they are going to have 1 TV. So that is practically not possible, no?
Yes, sir.
So you have to just give the logic behind each and everything that you are going to take. Maybe you are getting some type of guesstimate that you aren't aware about in the industry or something like that, but you have to give the logic behind each and everything that you are considering. The
So
interviewer,
we should have a rough idea basically,
yes,
not the
rough
precise
idea.
values.
As Bharat told initially, that you have to take the demographic of India, as well as one more thing you can add is you should have a population idea of your city in which you are living.
Okay, sir.
Because sometimes the interviewer might ask you not about the guesstimate of India or like that. You can he can ask you that from where do you belong. If you say I am from Delhi or Chandigarh, then he might ask you the number of TV sold in Chandigarh itself. So with that demographics, you should also be aware of that.
Okay, sir.
Okay, so I guess all the doubts have been resolved. Now we were planning to do a guesstimate on the number of burgers which are sold at a McDonald's outlet, but we are somewhat falling short of time. So what we'll be doing is we will be working out the procedure of it, but we won't be going into the hardcore calculations for it, right? So Brahmjot, you can proceed with it.
Yeah. So Bharat, we need to estimate the number of burgers sold at McD outlet. So can we move further with this?
Okay. Sir, if you could please tell me that what is the size of the McD outlet? What are the number of seats?
Number of seats. You can consider that like we have a 50 table restaurant.
Okay.
On each table we have 4 seats.
It is a 200. It would be a bit big, I guess.
Yeah, that's a big store.
Okay. So you're having 200 seats on the restaurant. Fine. So do I need to consider the dine-in or the takeaways?
If possible, we can consider both, but our priority is dine-in only.
So, dine-in only. Okay. So now talking about the dine-in. So it is open 7 days a week, a general McD outlet, which I know. So till where I know that on weekdays, that is from Monday till Friday, the rush is generally low. And on the Saturdays and Sundays, that is on the weekends, it is a bit busier than usual. So I think we can take that into account also.
Yeah, that should be taken into account.
Okay, so I guess general MACD outlet is open from 10 a.m. till 10 p.m. Fine
Yeah,
assumption to go.
12 hours is good.
Okay, so we can say that it is open 12 hours a day. And I believe that on a general day, first of all, we can solve it for a weekday. So if you are solving it for a weekday, I guess from on a weekday from 6 p.m. till 10 p.m. is the peak time. Is that a good to go with?
Yeah, that's the peak time. And one suggestion from my side is we can also consider lunchtime as a peak time also.
Okay, so we can basically say that from 6 till 10 and from 2 till 4.
Yeah,
Fine.
that's good.
Okay, so we can say that for 6 hours, it is in the peak mode.
Yeah.
I'm just denoting it by P. And for another 6 hours, it is in the non-peak mode. That is the NP. Okay, fine. So as we know that we are having 200 seats. Now, if I talk just about one seat itself, then I can basically assume that one person takes around 20 minutes to eat. Fair assumption enough?
Yeah, fair assumption.
So in 1 hour, 3 people can eat on one seat. And I guess in 20 minutes, one person can eat one burger.
Yeah.
So if one person can eat one burger, then in 1 hour, 3 burgers will be eaten by 3 people. So we can say that there will be 3 burgers per hour per seat. Now, further I can think of is that if we multiply it by the number of seats which are there, which are 200, so we can basically say that on its peak capacity, it can handle 600 burgers per hour.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, as we know that during the peak hours, it will be working at 100% capacity. So in that sense, I can say that for 6 hours, it will be serving 600 burgers. So in that case, it will be 6 into 600. It will be 3,600 burgers, which are served during the peak hours. And during the non-peak hours, it will be functioning, let us say, at 1/3 of its capacity. So if it is functioning at 1/3 of its capacity, it will be serving 1/3 of 600. That happens to be 200 burgers per hour. So 200 burgers per hour for 6 hours will make it 1,200 burgers.
Okay.
So I can say that in all, from dine-in, 4,800 burgers will be sold in a day on a weekday. Same way, for the weekend, I can basically assume that out of these 12 hours, the peak time happens to be from 1 p.m. till 5 p.m. and from 6 till 10.
Okay.
So from 1 till 5, it will be 4 hours. From 6 till 10, it will be
8 hours.
another 4 hours. So it will be 8 hours in peak and around 4 hours in non-peak.
Bharat,
Now-
I guess we need not go into the calculations. That is
Yeah.
clear, I guess.
Yeah.
So anyone has any doubts, you
Anyone
can ask.
having, so we can basically get the numbers from here and you can get the number of burgers which are sold. Yeah. Anyone having any doubt, you can ask. Is that clear with all of you?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir, Shmeet, you can ask.
Okay, so here we have assumed that all seats get used up, right? But generally, what happens when a family walks in? Suppose it's a 3-member family, but they still take a table for 4, right? So
Yeah.
that one seat is not used. So wouldn't there be few differences from the exact value?
Yeah,
This
so
is a-
that is another factor which you can introduce. That's a very good point on your behalf. So that is obviously there. So you can basically bring that also into account that 200 seats won't be used. Let us say that 3/4 of the seats are used on the peak time. So you can take an assumption. and corresponding to it, the numbers corresponding to the peak hours and the non-peak hours would change. Furthermore, if you talk about it in a dynamic way, you can take COVID also into account. 50% of the capacity is allowed. That can also be another factor which can be taken into account. So more the factors you are taking into account, these are the brownies which you earn, which will help you go far in the guesstimates.
But a suggestion from my side, that don't consider that much factors which you can't work out. Like in that case, maybe there is some difficulties to work out.
Yeah, if you're taking a number of factors into account, just make sure that you don't mess yourself up. So that's good, but you should be organized for that. Any other doubts? You can just unmute yourself and ask. This is the last thing we have to do. So any questions you have for us?
Excuse me, sir.
Yeah.
Sir, regarding the license strategy, sir, मैं ऐसे कह रहा था जैसे एक RTO एवरेज ऑन डेली एवरेज 10 to 15 लाइसेंसेस इशू करता है, एंड अगर हम टोटल आर्ट देखें तो डिस्ट्रिक्ट्स इन इंडिया दैट इज अराउंड 750. So 750 into 15 into 20 is the number of working days in a month into 12, that is the number of months in a year, and उसके according calculation करें तो sir.
That can be another way, but yeah, you can go with it. That is also
because that is coming around something 27 lakh and 29 lakh is the amount of cars that is that
but
is basically
in this case there is ambiguity. Like if you are considering that RTO is going to publish this much amount of license, see in an average family, let's say you have license also and your father is also eligible and your mother is also eligible. But
Yes.
does that mean ki in a family, if you have 3 licensing holders, you're going to have 3 cars?
but so again there is a factor ki अगर मैं 2 licenses issue करवा रहा हूँ.
Can I just interrupt? Sorry for that. Just a thing for you, all of you, that we will be having an activity to right now. Just after 5 minutes, we will be we'll be providing you with Google Meet links, and you will be joining in groups of 10 or 15, and we will be solving a guesstimate with all of you. So please don't leave the meet. Or if you have left the meet, you can tell your friends that it will be shared on the group. You can continue.
Yes, Akash.
यस सर तो मैं ये कह रहा था जैसे अगर मैं 2 लाइसेंसेस अप्लाई कर रहा हूँ तो एक तो ये एस्पेक्ट है कि एलिजिबिलिटी का, सेकंड एस्पेक्ट ये भी हो सकता है ना कि सर इफ आई एम अप्लाइंग मतलब 2 लाइसेंसेस मैं अप्लाई कर रहा हूँ तो हमें दोनों को ही ड्राइव करनी होगी कहीं ना कहीं. हम अप्लाई करके ऐसा तो नहीं है एक ही कार को यूज कर रहे होंगे दोनों, मतलब हम अप्लाई कर रहे हैं तो इसका मेन पर्पस ये भी हो सकता है कि 2 कार्स हो हमारे पास, हमें डिफरेंट जगह जाना हो तो.
Yes, Akash, this is the case, but you can't take to be universal truth that in a family, if there are 3 or 4 licensing, each of the family person would have going to have its individual car.
Yes, sir.
Right? That thing you have to consider. You can take this approach, but you have to, if someone cross questions you about this thing, you have to tackle this.
Yes, sir.
Right?
That I will work, basically. Because if we divide it by 2, मतलब अगर हम ये देखें कि सिर्फ मदर फादर जो बेसिकली पेरेंट्स हैं अगर वो मान के चलते हैं एक फैमिली में, तो दैट इज कमिंग अराउंड समथिंग 13.5 lakhs, तो वो फिर काफ़ी कम ही हो जाता है. एंड क्योंकि गैस एस्टिमेट से तो मैंने सोचा ये अप्रोच में भी लगाई जा सकती है.
Okay. Any other questions, or shall we proceed to the activity round?
Sir, could you suggest any book or website link for practicing guesstimates?
For guesstimates, you can obviously refer to YouTube, and you can find many questions on many websites also. They're readily available. One of the basic things with guesstimates is that you need to practice it. You can start practicing it by yourself with a paper that मैं ऐसे solve करूँगा. But the best thing would be that you find someone who is that much dedicated to solving a guesstimate. You can just set up a Google Meet, sit with them, along with them. You can act as an interviewee and the other as an interviewer, and you can exchange the roles and you can get an insight that दूसरी side बैठ के किसी को solve करते हुए कैसा लगता है and खुद solve करते हुए कैसा लगता है. That is the best way to learn guesstimates. Okay, so now we'll be proceeding to the activity round. In around 7 minutes, you will be getting a Google Sheet with the links corresponding.